Hello, and welcome to another fully live episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I'm a security researcher at Varonis, and today, per usual, I have my co-host and fellow hacker, Alex Lynn, on the show, but also we are joined by Darren and Mike to talk about a really exciting announcement for the Wi-Fi Pineapple. Thank you, both of you, for joining us today.
Hooray! Oh my gosh, guys, it's so good to see you again. It's been too long.
I know it has been. And Darren, now that you're here, maybe you could answer our number one question that we keep getting on our videos, which is usually addressed at me. Why are you not Darren Kitchen?
Oh, yes. So the reason I am not Darren Kitchen is, hang on, let me check my Texas driver's license here while I cover up the barcode. It says I'm Darren Dale Kitchen.
Oh,
dang.
Well, all right, everyone. Now you can no longer complain that it's not Darren Kitchen. We have Darren on the show. So, Darren, we have a lot to talk about in terms of the Wi-Fi Pineapple. I just updated my own, and I was really excited to see a couple features as a Wi-Fi person that I was really missing. Well, not to get too ahead of ourselves, but WPA3, for example, being able to detect that is really awesome. And also being able to see like the status of protected management frames so I don't waste my time. So this is really cool, and there's lots of things to talk about. And I understand the person responsible for all this is also on with us.
Hello. Not all of it, but certainly I'm working on the latest development for it. Yeah, we've got a lot of new features coming in 2.0, and it's available in the beta channel right now as RC1.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Mike, I am super jealous as you just pop on full screen and I realize what awesome is that the patch? It's a sick patch you got there on your hat.
Is that the Kismet logo?
That is the yep. Oh, yeah, nice. They just came in the mail today.
I believe one of my two computers on the screen also has a Kismet sticker on it, so
nice.
You're in good company.
Let's see. I see the alpha. I'm gonna find it. This is the
it might be my other MacBook, but I know I have at least one. Oh no,
That's a nice problem to have. Too many computers.
Okay, I should have mentioned it then if I wasn't 100% sure, but I know that at least one of mine does. So I might have to find that computer and bring it on screen just to prove I'm not lying at some point. But yeah,
it's definitely all about the layering.
Yeah, it might have gotten lost under layers is the problem.
This one I'm pretty proud of. I actually got the Dryden before they changed the name to Armstrong. I guess most people probably know Dragorn best for Kismet, and he's doing some awesome work on the Wi-Fi Pineapple, and we couldn't be more excited to debut 2.0. It's quite the surprise to be releasing RC1, as it were, and been garnering some amazing feedback, and this seems like it. Fingers crossed. It's been in development for quite a while, and it brings on so many amazing changes. So to your point about management frame, that's like just kind of core to what we've been doing over the last couple of years with the project, with the release of the 7th generation. It's like all about that usability, all those little nuances where you're right. You could spend forever attacking a network only to find out that it's got management frame protection and that it's not even worth your time. So if we can just like make that, really put that in your face in a web interface, make it easy, because why should you have to scroll through, a bunch of JSON output in a command line or things like that,
Yeah, it's really awesome how transparent the interface is too, and how everything's like set up step by step. There's like recon, attacks, and stuff like that. It's great.
Yeah, actually, one of the things that one of the kind of unsung heroes of the Wi-Fi Pineapple that I feel like hasn't received as much attention as it really warrants is this system that was implemented with the Mark VII, which is campaigns. And you want to talk about kind of like walking you through it, and that's actually another element that has gotten a lot of love with this release, adding support for 5 gigahertz, and just kind of a lot of nuances with the way that it's scheduled. So if you haven't played with the campaign system, it's the second drop down, and it actually walks you through setting up a attack and allows you to basically configure a script that is a repeatable, essentially a pen test. And it's an area where we're putting a lot more effort in, as you can basically, I don't want to say paint by numbers, but a lot of Wi-Fi hacking is procedural, and if we can automate it, we absolutely should, because nerds, and that's what we do.
That kind of
Yeah.
reminds me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say the new campaign system's gotten a lot of work, and there's more coming. But now you can automatically generate your campaign reports either as an HTML with all the report data. It's got the handshakes embedded directly in it, so you can just download the one report, and then it'll auto-generate the handshake PCAPs, the credentials from Evil WPA, or you can download it as JSON and post-process it with your own tools to generate a report however you want to format it.
That's really cool. Honestly, it reminds me of my favorite feature when I show people how to use Multego, like something that's like a pretty complicated like OSINT tool. They have a transform section where it answers the question like, where do I get started? Like, how do I just take one piece of data and then let it run a little bit to get an idea of where to go next? Because some people just don't know where to start. It sounds like that kind of solves the issue of, if you generally know what you want to do, but you might not know which one of these Hack5 tools embedded into the Pineapple to use first. That would kind of walk you through creating like your first, I guess, like pen test, if it was something you weren't super experienced with, or maybe you know what you want the effect to be, but you're not really sure what order to use the tools in.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's great for setting up the initial pen test. It's also great for coming up with something where if you are you're leaving a device behind at a company for like an overnight pen test or a multi-day test, where you can have this run automatically and collect data or perform attacks at half hour, hourly, 6 hours, and then the next day come in and see the reports with all of the credentials gathered at each of those intervals.
I think the coolest thing is, as it seems, you can also run these campaigns like in parallel. So you can set like different attributes or stuff like that and generate like different campaign outputs depending on what sort of things you want to filter for.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, I'm sure you guys in your career, in IT and in pen testing, you get to a point where wizards kind of seem like, oh gosh, just get out of my way. I know what I'm doing. But I do also remember, especially when I first started, systems administration on a bunch of Windows systems, it was actually like really helpful to have those wizards kind of guide you through some of those things. And the nice thing about this is, well, yes, it will guide you through those. At the end of the day, when you finish your campaign, if you click edit, you can scroll through here. This is a shell script, and you can go ahead and start adding to these functions and creating your own functions and extending upon this. So if you wanted, to, for instance, every time a client connects, to do an Nmap scan or whatever have you, this is a scheduled task, and you can see the variables that it's exposing, and so how you can just kind of recycle those in here and expand upon it. So, and actually to that same point, if you aren't familiar with this element of the Pineapple, if you're actually more comfortable here, hitting tilde, like the console in Quake or the little terminal icon in the top right, if you run the PineAP command, you have full control over the suite right there from the command line. So a lot of this stuff is also very scriptable in the same way that you can kind of click around and all get it done too. So you get both of those.
Yeah, the extensibility is awesome.
So we had a question from the chat, and that was, can you add rules like excluding certain APs to a campaign?
Yeah, actually, that's a really easy one to do. And it's one where I think you saw me while I was setting up this campaign, just kind of like click through and put it into what I call danger mode, which is to say, if I go to PineAP and my filters, I have it set, or if I put in deny, oh, you know what? I've got it in censorship mode right now. So you might not even be able to see the MAC addresses that would otherwise be listed here. And just to real quick tangent on that, the reason for that is if I go into Recon, you can see that these are actually all these MAC addresses, and the SSIDs will be obfuscated because we're on camera and I don't necessarily want to dox myself.
This is a gift. But, this is a gift for us. I get YouTube comments on my old Nullbyte videos being like, you are aware that I know your exact location. I'm like, that is the most dangerous part of Los Angeles, my friend. If you want to show up there, you can. But just, doing this sort of wireless stuff all the time gets us people who, figure out that wiggle.net exists or something, and then let us know, exactly where we live, which I think they think makes me think they're cool, but it's actually just kind of threatening. So this is a gift to us, and I thank you for that.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome. And, I will say I never used to care about this because I was on the 18th floor of a high rise in Oakland. And I felt the same way because where I was in Oakland, it's like, hey, listen, if you want to show up, that's on you, right? But yeah, so it's definitely something where you can, this is perfect for demos. Going back to the question about filtering, though, if we were to, here, let me just temporarily, I'll show you where the censorship mode is. It's under advanced, and then you just check this box. It's an experimental feature. You can even enable random censorship, and it'll make everything like a different fruit name. But with that, you go to your filtering, and you can either allow list or deny list, either based on the actual client, which would be the MAC address. So if I wanted only Dead Beef Coffee to join, I would set client filter to allow, come down here and say BADBEFC0FE, right? And with that MAC address there, only that client can connect. Similarly, on the SSID filtering, and this is really important when it comes to an engagement where you've been given a scope of only, say, the client's WPA enterprise network and maybe their guest network. And so what you would do is you would add those SSIDs here. So if I put only like corp-guest in here, then only clients that have been allowed, which is just this device right here, looking for this device right here, this SSID, will be allowed to connect. So when I come in here and I click allow associations, then the only association that it will allow is filtering are these. Whereas if I say deny, then it's not going to allow this person, and it's not going to allow anything looking for that network, which is like kind of the most confusing thing. Because you would think like deny would be like, oh, cool. Like you would think deny means nobody can connect, but it means deny is deny this list. So if you wanted to put it into what I call danger mode, you put nothing in the list, you put it on deny, and then everyone can connect, which is a bad idea. And how you can make friends with your neighbors really quickly.
Oh yeah, so somebody in the chat going by Potato Bois just says, remember to mention the management access settings, because the last thing you want is someone connecting via open Wi-Fi and capturing your pineapple, which was something funny they brought up on one of our previous streams. They were able to show a little proof of concept that could identify a pineapple's management access point and attempt to log in using default credentials, which of course you don't want to leave default credentials, but some people, they plug it in, they forget, maybe they reset it and they forget, maybe it gets bumped and gets reset. Who knows what happens? But either way, it's definitely worth mentioning the management settings.
Yeah, so fortunately, there's no actual default credentials. You have to create a password when you go through the setup. But it is very easy to just set pineapple or something for your own purposes and effectively default credential yourself.
Yeah, it's also crazy to think that up until now, if you had been snared by a Wi-Fi pineapple as a rogue access point, you could always just go to this address. You could go to the 172.1642.1 on port 1471. One of the, that's a little bit of obfuscation that is not on standard port 80. It's also a bit of an Easter egg. In any event, it used to be that you could always get to that. Now it is an option where you can check these boxes under settings and advanced and enable or disable access to the web interface from those various, whether it was the Open AP or the WPA evil AP, or even the client mode connection. Now, obviously, we're always going to, recommend that the hardwired is the best solution, because getting man in the middle while you're trying to pull a man in the middle is just irony. Yeah, but it is also convenient in, a lot of test scenarios to be able to get to the management interface from your phone over Wi-Fi. So I do it all the time here.
Yeah, and that saved me today because I was having a hard time getting it to pop up as like a network device. And instead I just connected to one of the networks that it popped up. And I was like, oh, boom, I'm in. Okay, now I can log in and get set up. So it was, in a moment of panic, actually super useful for me to be able to access with. All right, so there's a lot of other things to talk about with this update. A lot of it addresses WPA 3, just being able to detect it for recon and being able to see some things that previously weren't able to be seen. Do we want to talk a little bit about some of the tweaks that have been done specifically for looking for some of the newer security mechanisms that some Wi-Fi networks might be offering?
Yeah, so basically now we properly detect the WPA3 attributes, the management protection frames, and the other new, more modern WPA options. So we automatically filter out we automatically filter from DAuth anyone with management frame protection turned on, since you won't be able to bounce them off. We can detect WPA3 and the opportunistic encryption options, OWE, and things like that are built into it now. So it's just a much more modern view of the. Sorry, I keep getting distracted by Darren's screen.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to show the tag parameters view, but I think this is an old recon scan. I'm going to do it on my test one. And essentially, it's going to start gathering this information as I request it. We're not going to cache that all the time. But essentially, we'll be able to take a look at all of the additional tagged parameters that are part of the Wi-Fi network, in addition to just the network name or ESSID, and of course it's MAC address or BSSID. There's a bunch of other parameters that kind of explicitly define all the nuances of this network, like it's what is HT? Sorry, help me out here, Mike. I forget the name of the term for its channel width.
HT channels, 80 megahertz, 40 megahertz, 20 megahertz.
Yep.
All right, from the chat, what's up with the pineapple LED going rainbow when you hold the reset button for too long? It's a show of support for the LGBTQ community. So there you go. You heard it from us.
This is. In fact, it is built into, that right there is built into almost every Hack5 product that has an RGB LED, and you can invoke it with the command, do a barrel roll, all caps, underscores for spaces.
That's something that we might
cool
need to
Easter
embed
egg.
into the Wi-Fi nugget then, just for continuity, to make sure that it lines up with the other Hack5 products.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the best Ash Bunny payloads ever. It's a one line, just do a barrel roll and just enjoy the confetti.
Okay, that's super cool. So another thing that I also noticed about some of these changes is it seems to be able to grab handshakes in more different ways, or at least it seems to automate that process a lot more. Would you think that's fair to say?
Yeah. Now we can do background handshake capture. So it's always looking to see if, while it's channel hopping, if a handshake has gone past, and will automatically collect those.
Yeah, why not, right?
So you can do, absolutely. So you can explicitly deauth the network or target a network to collect handshakes, but you can also just collect handshakes as clients join and leave the network, or refresh their keys, which typically would happen every 5 minutes or so per client. So it's just sort of another chance to collect more handshake data that was available in the air anyway, without sacrificing recon time or anything like that.
Does it do that passively, or is it trying to actively authenticate the clients? Okay. That's
Nope,
cool.
it's purely passive. It just looks for the ePOL handshakes in the air and collects them and saves them so that you can download them.
Yeah, and this handshake, the automatically connect your any handshakes checkbox at the top, that is going to be for anything as it channel hops. Whereas what I just did, you see I got that handshake, that was an active attack. I specifically came down here to this network, chose to capture handshakes, and then I don't know if you saw that, but I clicked deauthenticate all clients. And so all of these that you can see that are kind of like indented under that network, that are the children of it, received deauth packets. So that is an active attack. And then, it's when you do that, when you click the capture handshakes on that, it's going to lock to just that channel, so that it has a higher likelihood of capturing all 4 parts of the 4-way handshake. So now when I come over to my handshakes view, you can see that I actually have, in this case, I got all but message 1. And if I did it again, I'll probably get all 4. But even that is still enough to perform an attack.
I'm so
Oh, go ahead.
excited because Adam from our chat just asked the question I was like wanted to ask, but like was waiting for someone else to. Does it do PMKID captures?
I believe yes.
Cool. That's awesome. So that means that theoretically you should be able to get handshakes even from networks that don't have any clients connected to them. If you're trying to capture, just a hash in order to crack it without anything connected, which for a long time wasn't possible. So it's really cool. Oh, and this is a really good question, actually. Is it possible to clone WPA3 networks like it is possible to clone WPA2 access points?
Not currently. It's on the list.
It's definitely on the roadmap, and that's going to be a fun one. And the reason I believe it's going to have a lot of opportunities for attack is that they did, it's a great specification in that it provides a certain level of security for open networks, right? The idea that every individual client to the access point is going to have its own encryption stream, regardless of whether or not it's using WPA PSK. So WPA3 open network is better than an open network in all previous generations. However, it also may, depending on the way that the vendor or operating system implements it, give the user a false sense of security if it were to come to a rogue access point using WPA3 in an open network kind of manner. And that may be, on the social side, something that gives someone, a lot less pause about entering credentials or, allowing the attacker to grab some PII.
Interesting. So I have one question as well, and this is, nobody bothered to ask this, I just am genuinely curious. I noticed that as soon as I powered up the Pineapple, it was spoofing a bunch of different networks that my computer had been to recently. So I'm curious, since my computer has, one half of the Handshake, is this capable of grabbing handshakes for networks like client side, basically from half handshakes from a client, from all these, attempts to get the client to try to connect and offer up its half?
Not
currently. I can address the first half of that and
Right.
how that came to be. And then, we can explain the kind of nuances of the four-way handshake and why you're not necessarily going to get, if you don't know the key, the values that you so desire.
The real one, yeah.
Yeah, but the reason that you're able to see all of the access points that your devices had previously connected to when you fire up the Pineapple in that way is if I were to put this in active mode or even just under advanced, where you can kind of see a little bit more of the nuances of what's happening here, and I tell it to capture SSIDs to the pool and then beacon those responses and broadcast that pool. What that means is that for all of the devices in the vicinity that are sending probe requests for an SSID that is in what's called their PNL or their preferred network list, it is going to capture those. So immediately you start to see some show up here in my SSID pool that devices may have connected to in the past, and they're saying, hey, are these around? And so what so that's that capture SSID to pool checkbox. And then the broadcast SSID pool means that basically the Wi-Fi Pineapple is now mimicking all of those devices, sending out beacon frames saying, hey, I'm all of these networks. And so that is going to entice those clients. And while, yes, you can go into, recon, and I can come down to a client and I can say, clone WPA to network, and I can, give it a password. Actually, hang on. Let me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's not the password. And I can, set it to WPA to PSK, and, I can tell it to capture handshakes and clone. The clients that are going to want to associate with that are going to have a different WPA key stored on their device than this is going to mimic. And so while there will be a handshake, it will not be, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Mike, but it's not going to be a useful handshake in capturing or in cracking that key.
Yeah, I don't believe it be extractable.
Well, currently, the only reason I mentioned is my most popular Hack5 video at the moment, I believe, is capturing half handshakes from clients. And if you get that half handshake, you have, what's interesting is you can't authenticate it. So usually when you get the access point side of the handshake, you have a basically confirmation that you cracked it properly, and you know that you got the right result. When you have somebody potentially guessing, they could be attempting to, log into your access point and just typing in gibberish. So you have one of two cases that could be happening. Either you have my computer attempting to connect to a Wi-Fi network that has the same name and security type, but a different password. So it's giving up a hash of the one that's stored inside the computer, but it's not going to match the access points. Or it could just be someone button mashing, finding an access point and trying to connect. And in that case, we actually haven't captured anything at all. And trying to brute force that hash would be a complete waste of time.
Yeah, to be honest, I would have to verify this, but from my understanding of the specification, it wouldn't be super useful. But if in the off chance I'm wrong, I would love that, because man, would that be fun. And to be honest, what I've found is that when doing this, especially if you have the key, so the idea is that you first, whether actively or passively, capture that key, and then it becomes available in pcap and hashcat format from the Handshakes tab. You go ahead and run that through a cracker, whether that is your box or somebody else's box or AWS instance or numerous cracking services out there. Once you have that key, if you spin up that WPA Evil Twin, it's ridiculous how effective it is. Like, ridiculous. It really is a race condition and a deauth frame away from becoming the man in the middle at that point.
Yeah, I think that's super cool. I'm just kind of throwing it out there because I know that actually, this theoretically should stimulate that traffic anyway. So if you're sitting there with a laptop next to it, you could just potentially capture this in Wireshark and be able to then do the same thing. But I know that also it should be theoretically possible to run those same tools, not the cracking part, but the capturing part on the Pineapple. So.
Yeah, that's what we need next, is a Wi-Fi Pineapple with a bunch of PCI lanes for a bunch of GPUs. There you go.
It gets real hot and needs a generator.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be a BYO GPU situation.
All right, so I can also see just a couple other things that were added to this as updating the setup wizard and some other things to make this easier for beginners probably to get started. I mean, that's one thing where for me, sometimes I didn't really know what the best way to get started with the Pineapple was. And the fact that now there's campaigns and then also an updated setup wizard is really, really useful. Is there any updates worth mentioning there?
It's just basically a smoother experience. Should be simpler. We made it a little easier with not having to hit the hardware button so often during setup, which stymies a lot of people, surprisingly.
Yeah, there's a reason that there's a bent up paperclip on my desk.
Yeah. But generally, just also making it harder to configure it a way you didn't expect it to.
That's good, because then you have to figure out how to undo it, and that can be quite the learning curve if you did something you didn't understand.
Yeah, and if you suddenly start grabbing all the clients around you and breaking networks that you didn't intend to break.
Yeah, there are a bunch of little nuances in here where, for example, if you were to have let me go ahead and clear both of these. If you had filters that were set to allow and there was nothing specified, you can get, you'll get a warning that says, hey, nothing's going to be able to connect. And, here it is right there, saying like, there's a potential misconfiguration. Maybe you want to go to your filter settings and check that out. So it's those kind of, the kind of area where we are in refining this so that it just, prevents you from stepping on your foot. So I like that. Also, to James Randolph, who had the question, might it be cool to create a Pineapple detector? If it is quite simply set up in this very simple mode that demonstrated here, with just these basic settings enabled and no further finesse, essentially it's going to beacon out or broadcast a SSID for anything you throw at it. So by sending out a probe request for is there a pineapple around, is going to get a response that says there's a pineapple around. So it's
some of its behavior Kismet will pick up as well. If you start deauthing clients, and things like that, Kismet will start noticing.
Kismet gave me a friggin' heart attack the first time that I plugged in a pineapple and forgot about it. Like a couple days later, I was running Kismet for a null byte video, and I just kept getting these alerts. And they weren't like normal alerts, like, oh, the SSID has changed or something. It was just like, this device is spoofing multiple networks that you know for a fact are hundreds of miles away. I was seeing like Grand Canyon Motel 6 networks popping up. Like, I was really freaking out. I was like, okay, well, someone's clearly attacking me. And then I realized it was a pineapple. So yes, I would say that Kismet can certainly act as a default Wi-Fi pineapple detector, and it really scared me. I was like, "Is the government outside? Did I anger a man in a van somewhere? Like, what is happening?" But yeah, then I found the pineapple and unplugged it, and then scary networks went away. So yeah, that's how I know that a pineapple is nearby. I see long dead networks or networks that are supposed to be hundreds, if not thousands, of miles away suddenly appear next to me.
Yeah, right out of the box, if you're just, checking boxes and not being specific with your filtering, you can get this thing in a mode that it will be very identifiable by a WPS. And Kismet does a great job of showing you those things. In fact, I know it will definitely run on the Enterprise. What's the latest, Mike, on the Mark VII? I can't imagine that's a heavy. I mean, it's not a heavy lifting device, to be honest. It's not made for that kind of throughput.
It will work. The latest version is in the community package feeds for the 2.0 firmware. It will not, as you say, it will not be the greatest experience. It'll kind of depend how many networks are around you. It can handle, 1,000 devices or so on a Mark VII. But if you get like heavy bursts of a lot of traffic, since Kismet does a lot more decoding of the internals of the packets than the pineapple normally cares about looking at, it'll choke a bit.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why we're very excited about the Enterprise hardware just around the corner. We're here playing with the latest production sample. Just went into mass. Oop, I'm sorry, that one's a little naked there, but you get the idea. And it's so exciting to have kind of a quad core arm under the hood and be able to do a lot more heavy lifting than we can on just the Mark VII. And yet it's so cool that even if you're just getting started and you've got a Mark VII, you've got like literally the same UI and you're working with the same tool set, albeit a bit slower of a CPU.
So we have another question from the chat. Coming from a new Pineapple owner, is there a way to alter and send unique wireless packets for testing? And one example that springs to mind for me is Matthew Van Hoff has been doing some really interesting research on sending malicious targeted beacon frames that only affect a single device and will attempt to set like the speed that it operates at or the timing offset that it waits before transmitting to a malicious value. So it essentially deauthenticates it without needing to use a deauthentication frame. But of course, that requires being able to like craft a specific packet and then send it. So is anything like that supported?
Okay, so two things are very interesting about that. First of all, the beacon response checkbox that you see here in PineAP settings, this is abusing the spec because there is no such thing as a beacon response. There's probe request and probe response, an association request and association response. But beacons are inherently meant to go to broadcast or FF, etc. The idea of doing a beacon response in this case of the Wi-Fi Pineapple is that we want to entice targets that have been susceptible to the open rogue access point to continue to listen to us after they've associated. And we found that many devices used a very simple method of determining whether or not something was a rogue AP by basically checking to see if there were continuous beacons for a few seconds after association. So that's exactly what this checkbox does. And instead of filling the airspace with just the SSID that client was interested in, it sends them just to that client. So that's something really cool because I feel like it's really fun when you start to abuse the spec like that.
Stealthy. No other devices should see it, right?
Exactly. Well, should. I mean, a well-tuned WPS should absolutely see this, but it was never built to be the perfect mousetrap or cat. I'm not sure if we're the cat or the mouse. that's a discussion for a different time. In any event, the as per just raw frame injection of whatever hex you want, that was literally a feature of the 6th generation Wi-Fi Pineapple, where there was just a text field where you could craft whatever your own packet was and just inject it. And we found in testing, like almost no usage of the feature. And so I think it's just basically commented out. We'd have to really go in and look. It's not to say that we couldn't. This is absolutely I don't want to say an easy, like a super easy feature, but it's not impossible to throw this in here. But we found very little engagement with that feature. So just for the sake of simplicity, remove that. It may still, for all I know, be an uncommented or undocumented feature of the command line PineAP command. But
well, so also usually you wouldn't want to. There's not a ton of utility injecting a single frame at a time. But since Python's available on the Pineapple, you can also just install Scapy and write a Python script.
That's really cool. Every time I get frustrated. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry to take your spotlight. One of the attacks that we were wanting to try out for a while was directed beacon frames. I don't know too much about them, but we were saying that'd be a way to get a response out of a specific device by like broadcasting what should be like a broadcast Wi-Fi name to a specific device that's known to have authenticated to it before, instead of sending it to like FF, etc.
Yeah.
Which would
it's pretty cool when you start messing with the protocol in ways that it wasn't intended to be, how you can just start coming up with essentially your own protocol. And I've seen some pretty ad hoc implementations with just abusing beacon frames alone. So very cool stuff.
What would also be cool is I saw you were pulling up Kismet there for a second, and I've used like the newer version of Kismet with like the web UI, which is honestly kind of nice over the terminal version. Although I do sort of prefer sometimes having that nice like hackery interface. Do you know if you can run the web UI on the Pineapple for Kismet?
Yeah, actually, just fired up right here on the new Enterprise Pineapple is exactly that. So if we go back to my screen, you'll see I'm still at 172.16.42.1, but now I'm on port 2501, having run Kismet from the command line, and
sweet.
And here we are. Obviously, Mike, the author, would probably have a lot better of a time demoing this than I would, but there you are.
If you just go to data sources there, you'll see all the built-in interfaces pop up.
Oh, hey, that's great.
If you just go to WLAN2 on there, Darren.
Mm-hmm. Enable the source.
Enable.
I presume you could probably use like a
GPS
control over USB as well if you wanted to do war driving or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, you could do. Yeah, it supports the GPS over USB and whatnot.
That's awesome.
And actually, just to tease one of our friends on the Hack5 channel who is currently playing with a LTE modem that also supports GPS, there's a lot of potential there, as we've essentially hacked this little guy to run on the Pineapple. And so, yeah, whether it's LTE or GPS, stay tuned for a fun video on that.
Somebody else
has a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
There is a question about how often does Kismet get built for the Pineapple. Right now, just the latest release is built for it.
Kismet remote PCAP on the Pineapple is nice. Teamed up a Raspberry Pi. They're a great team.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So remote PCAP lets you just use the Pi basically as a network attached Wi-Fi device. So you run, Kismet on your laptop where you have a lot of RAM and CPU, and then you just shovel packets at it from the Pi.
That's so.
Or you run it on a I say a Pi Pineapple, or you run it on a Pi 4 and then shovel packets to it from the Pineapple. Dark Matter's Wi-Fi Cactus worked that way as well. If you remember that was 25 Tetras shoveling packets over Ethernet to a big Kismet server using the same remote capture.
I'm excited to see him do that with half as many enterprise units. Have to build a custom power supply. Should be good.
So someone else, Adam, is also asking about whether or not you can add third-party Wi-Fi hacking tools that are generally supported on most like Linux installations, like Wi-Fi, Airgeddon, and these are command line tools that provided you have all the prerequisites installed, it should work, right?
Yeah, a lot of these tools are already in the open work. community toolchain. So if you go to the shell and do OPKG is the OpenWrt equivalent of apt and whatnot. And OpenWRT is a router OS, which is what Pineapple's built on top of. So
in fact,
you can
even
install
just from the web interface, go to modules and then packages, and you can go ahead and get a listing of all of the packages. And so, for instance, we can see that we've got Aircrack NG and all of these installed, but we can also go into all of the ones that we have as available to install, and just in a couple of clicks have those installed for us if we don't want to do OPKG install whatever you want from the command line, which I currently have running Kismet on. Yeah.
Okay, so
actually a lot of these are also Python, and so since Python 3 is there, or you can install with OPKG, it's those are all totally possible. Although some are kind of like duplicates of some of the things that you can already do with PineAP. So depending on what it is that you're trying to do, there a lot of times you can just do it right from the web interface.
All right, so there's one feature that we've constantly been asked about on our own tools, and because we're working with like ESP microcontrollers, we will never be able to get 5 gigahertz working on them. However, it sounds like it does work on the Pineapple. So do you want to talk a little bit about how hacking WPA or 5 gigahertz like WPA networks would go nowadays?
Yeah, so the trick with 5 gigahertz is you've got to do it right. You've got to do it legally. You've got to be respectful of things like DFS and making sure that you're not stomping on the wrong UNII channels. With the Mark VII on the base model, when we very first went to develop this, we were looking to make a much beefier version of the Wi-Fi Pineapple Nano, which at the time was a just 2.4 gigahertz device. Now we had its bigger brother, the Tetra, which also did 5 gigahertz, and that was 802.11 ABGNN. With the Wi-Fi Pineapple Mark VII now, we've introduced the MK7 AC adapter, seen here with the cool little decals. And when those are paired together, it's an automatic experience to unlock 5 gigahertz on the Mark VII, and that's 802.11 ABGN and AC. And obviously expecting DFS and all of those other things. And so it gets a little bit more complicated, but that's more on the technical implementation and the business side of things. As far as the actual hacking is concerned, the nice thing is you don't really have to think about it. It's all built into the interface, or even just with your tools, it's the same kind of idea of setting the interface into monitor mode and using the tools, and it just so happens to see different channels.
That's awesome. So it's kind of transparent. Once you plug it in, it just works like any other feature, and most of the attacks still apply.
Yeah, in fact, whether it's the Mark VII AC or another compatible 5 gigahertz adapter on the Mark VII, as soon as you plug it in, there's essentially a USB hot plug script kicks off, and the interface is able to tell, oh, hey, a compatible adapter has been plugged in. And if it's the Mark VII AC, it's going to pop up a GUI and just say hey, we got upgrades. Let's configure those. So it's just a matter of selecting, in the case of the Mark VII, the WLAN 3 for the Mark VII AC as your recon adapter. And then recon is all performed with that adapter, so you can see everything that it can see. And in this case, we, I don't want to say lucked out, but a lot of, research and trial and error with the various chipsets, because they're not all created equal, to find one that was able to go into monitor mode and do raw frame injection. And, going back a couple of years, there was many false starts on some Realtek chipsets that won't be named because people will cry. But, this MediaTek chipsets that is in there is doing well for us.
I noticed also you have, seems 2 radios on the little adapter. Are those for different purposes, like one for recon, one for attack, or what's up with that?
No, it's just the fact that it is a dual band adapter. So one of them is 2.4 and the other is 5 gigahertz.
Cool. I thought it was strictly a 5 gigahertz adapter.
Nah, it's not strictly 5. Nope.
Cool. So, one of my favorite things about this was how easy it was to get started with this. So if you already have a Wi-Fi Pineapple, The steps are just basically as easy as going into the advanced settings for updates, enabling the beta releases. Is that right? And then just hitting apply, and then you should be able to see this update and be able to get it and try it out yourself, right?
Yep.
Settings, advanced, beta, set your channel, go back to settings and say check for update. And actually, I should have an update because I'm on a in development build, as it were. But there you go.
Cool. So if you have a Wi-Fi Pineapple, if you want to give some feedback, check it out, then that is the way to do it. And I was very pleasantly surprised by how easy it was to enable this and update to the most recent version. And then you too can enjoy all the recent updates and features that we have just been talking about. And also, thank you to everybody in the chat. It's been lively, and we've had some really excellent questions. And if you have a question because you're watching this on repeat and you feel like it wasn't answered in the chat, please go ahead and leave it in the chat. We will make sure it gets answered either on the next live stream, or maybe we'll have to invite you back again if we get a whole bunch of great questions about the Wi-Fi Pineapple.
Yeah, absolutely. And community.hack5.org, that's also where you can find the forums where you can provide feedback. The release candidate for 2.0 is out now. So if you're watching this after the fact, it's probably already in the stable channel. But as always, we value your feedback when it comes to the Wi-Fi Pineapple project. And really, it's your feedback that has helped guide us into what you guys want. And we're just really excited that we're able to make a tool that has received such fanfare and so much love over the years. And so we're just super over the moon grateful for all of the support in making this project really become like the most refined Wi-Fi hacking tool that I think you can get. So I'm excited for that.
Me too. Yeah. And thank you, everyone, for being available to answer these questions. It's great kind of bridging the gap between the developers of this and the community and getting some direct feedback. So yeah, thank you to everyone, and we will see you all next time. Bye.